Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and I'm gonna go right into it. I come across this video on YouTube about this former Christian, now atheist, who claimed the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not really eyewitnesses. So we're gonna chop it up, and I'm gonna tell you guys what I think along the way. But before I go, whenever I hear somebody say they're a former Christian, that automatically telling me that person wasn't really a Christian, because no one who's really convicted of knowing Christ will become an atheist, because atheism is stupid. Atheism is you shutting down your logic. Because when you see a building, you know there was a builder. You know someone did this without anyone tell you. But when it comes to God, when it comes to the universe and the fine tuning of the universe, they can't follow that simple logic. I don't know why, but we're gonna chop it up. Check this video out.
The reason why we have the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is thanks to the Catholics putting those labels on there. So I guess I don't understand why you say they are eyewitness accounts.
Why do I think they're eyewitness accounts?
Right.
Because they contain eyewitness data. Like, for example, the Gospel of John, there are 59 eyewitness details in that document called the Gospel of John that could only have been known by an eyewitness or somebody who knew an eyewitness.
Okay, is it possible that someone could have just been writing a story?
Well, then you'd have to discount all the other evidence that this doesn't appear to be a story. It appears to be a historical account.
From the Bible, right? The Bible is writing about, like, Mark is the first gospel that was written. And
probably. Some think Matthew may have been written first. Most scholars say Mark was written first.
So, this is my problem. Whenever somebody said that, the Bible, Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not really historical, that tells me that person haven't really read the Bible and look at the evidence for themselves, because obviously they contain historical narrative. I'm going to give you an example. In Luke chapter 3, look at this. I'm going to give you an example. This is what it says. It was now the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius, the Roman emperor. Pontius Pilate was governor over Judea. Herod Antipas was ruler over Galilee. So let me stop here. It says that it was now the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius. Who is Tiberius? When you look at the Roman records, you'll quickly find out who Tiberius was. He was the first Roman emperor in Rome. So that obviously tells you, Luke is writing his account based on historical narrative. So whenever somebody said the Bible, the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not really historical, that person is not really reading the Bible. Let's continue with the video.
So we'll go with the general consensus, I guess. And then they say maybe Matthew and Luke used a lot of Mark. That's why there's a lot of coinciding events. And if you ever read the Gospels horizontally, where you compare each resurrection account, there seems to be a lot of contradictions, and it's not just an eyewitness
What would those
problem.
contradictions?
Well, for example, I think in Mark, the ladies go to the tomb, and Jesus isn't there, and an angel tells them to go tell the people, but they don't. It just ends, and then something else is added on about snakes. And then Matthew, he goes ballistic and says there's angels and earthquakes and everything at the resurrection, and they tell her to go tell them to go tell the disciples, and they do this time. Luke reins it in a little bit, and he says the stone was already rolled away, and their angel is sitting on the tomb. Or I don't have this exactly correct, but it's the gist. And then John, being the beloved disciple, made himself, or whoever wrote it, made himself get there first before Peter, and I don't know, there's just a lot of contradictions.
How are those contradictory? I don't see them contradictory. I see them complementary because they're written by different people telling their perspectives on. How are they contradictory?
How did Luke miss the earthquakes and the angels? That seems
well,
like a big detail.
If he doesn't report an earthquake, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
You see, in the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we don't have, contradiction. We have different perspective. If me and you witness a crime and we have to give a statement to the police, me and you are going to give different statement, and we're not going to write exactly the same, because me and you have different perspective in life. You ever hear that term when it says that, hey, two people never see the same tree? And it's true. So the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are writing based on their own perspective. Let's continue with the video.
It doesn't mean it did.
No, but it's not a contradiction.
Well,
Like, for example, if somebody came into this, some reporter came into this room tonight and said, Frank Turek gave a presentation, that would be true. And if somebody else came into this room and said, Frank Turek spoke and so did Dr. Ben Gates, that would be true as well. That would be complementary. That would not be contradictory.
right, but those are ordinary, those are just ordinary circumstances, ordinary things. Those are not hard to believe. When something extraordinary happens, like there's angels and earthquakes and stones rolling away and
But they're
all
not
that.
contradictory. You might say, well, I would hope
accounts
this
seem
would be
to-
in here. See, here's one of the problems that I think some skeptics have with the scriptures, is they want to say that they're too divergent to have been true. Yet on the other hand, if they were exactly the same, they'd say, well, they were just copied from one another. See,
They're
every
both, the Gospels have both, exactly the same and different.
right, because they are
So-
witnessing the same events, so you're going to have some overlap and then you're going to have some differences. Let me give you a couple of examples of this. Do you know that when the Titanic went down, some eyewitnesses said it broke in two, and other eyewitnesses said, no, it went down whole? Does that mean that we can't trust the Titanic sank?
No, that doesn't. That is not a miraculous occurrence.
Leave miracles out for a second. Is that a contradictory? Well, it seems contradictory, right?
Well,
But what do they agree on?
that the Titanic sank,
Right,
and
exactly.
they lived to tell about it.
Right, so every single gospel says there was a resurrection. They may tell the story a little bit different way and have different details in there, and even if there are contradictions, that does not disprove the fact that there was a resurrection. Why would you
It could
have,
just be a story.
but
you're,
then you,
you're giving. This is what I feel like. I haven't heard evidence for your resurrection. I hear assertions and appealing to emotion. I haven't seen any evidence.
what would you consider to be evidence other than eyewitness accounts?
Eyewitness accounts are usually the most least reliable evidence.
So how do you know anything from the ancient world?
I don't. I have to use. I have to go by. It's the thing that makes the Bible unbelievable are the miracles that are in it.
I see, it seemed like this person have a presupposition bias against miracle, because that's the problem with atheism. You know what I mean? So they have whenever they look at the universe, they can't insert God into it. They think that everything could be explained. Everything could be explained by scientists. No, because they have a presupposition bias against miracle. Let's continue with the video.
Okay, so you have a philosophical presupposition against miracles then?
Not necessarily. I just don't. I guess I don't know what that means.
What, meaning you're ruling out miracles. Anything that has a miracle in it, you won't
Well,
believe.
you want to say the ancient world. You want to probably Caesar. I can believe what I read about him because he doesn't claim to do miraculous things.
See, that's what I mean by philosophical bias.
Okay.
You're ruling out miracles, and to be honest with you, you're probably on the side of most scholars. Most scholars will say, look, if it's got the miraculous in it, I can't believe it. The problem is the miraculous is possible because the first verse of the Bible appears to be true. There appears to be a God. Then the miracles are possible.
You're reading the first verse of Genesis with your Christian eyes. You're not reading it in historical context. But also the, what is it? The Quran has miraculous claims.
What do you think the
believe
proper
those?
interpretation of the first verse of Genesis means? What is it?
I don't know, but I'm not, I can tell that you're reading it with your Christian lens.
All it says there was a beginning, right? That God created the heavens and the earth.
Well, I mean, technically, was it a beginning, or was the universe just in a different state? Was it just in a different form?
Well, it says there was a beginning.
The Bible does.
Yes, and science, the scientists,
Currently, the science says that.
including Einstein, is saying that the universe had a beginning through his theory of general
Maybe
relativity.
this current state of the universe had a beginning.
The universe can't be eternal, otherwise today never would have gotten here.
That's gibberish. I don't even know what. I don't know what you're saying when you
All right.
say that.
Rachel, let me ask you a question. If Christianity were true, would you be a Christian?
If the Holy Spirit convicted me and brought me to it. I probably would have no choice.
Oh, no, you always have a choice.
Not if I was led by the Holy Spirit.
Oh, you can resist the Holy Spirit. A lot of people do.
Oh, well, then I don't know. I was
So-
a Christian.
If I gave you a book, would you read it?
My mom, I think, is going to buy it.
But that wasn't my question, Rachel. If I gave it to you, would you read it?
I could read it, and I could do a YouTube response, I guess.
You really sound open, you know?
All right.
Rachel, think about this. If God exists, if he does, and if the story of Jesus is true, isn't that the greatest news in history?
Oh, not for those going to hell.
Nobody has to go. That's the whole point.
Well, if they're not convinced that what they're reading in the Bible is true,
I said, if it was true, isn't it great news?
I guess. Yeah,
Great,
we get to
you're with
spend
me.
eternity.
All right, guys. So as you can clearly see, this debate was great. I hope you learned something from this debate. If you're a skeptic, if you're an atheist, my advice to you is to read the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and ask yourself: does the evidence point to God? Does the evidence point to Christ being reliable? And if it does, you put your faith in him. And if it doesn't, then you live your life the way you want to. But when you read the Gospel, be open-minded. Be open-minded and study the evidence. And if the evidence point to Christ, put your faith in him. And that's all I have to say. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.